found a simple pattern for a camisole top online, and I just have enough from the sleeve material to make a camisole. So this is shaped to my size, current size anyway. I have cut out the armhole areas and folded them over and pinned them. I'm going to sew those and then we'll continue on making this top. Next step is to reinforce a center opening, like a dart. So I've marked the center line across the top and I've measured down 5 inches, which is what the pattern calls for. And now I just have to sew down and then back up again to reinforce so that it doesn't stretch, because it will theoretically, if you're cutting into it like that, you can actually stretch the material so that it's uneven. So you just do reinforcing stitching to stop that from happening. That's done. Now I just need to cut that open. Next step is to fold those under and sew. If you hold it open like this, it should that's what it calls for to do, but I might make a bias binding and sew the bias binding over it instead, because I don't think I'm going to like how the center area looks after I've folded it over. Okay, I've made some binding. It's not bias binding because I haven't cut it on the bias, but as I'm going to be sewing straight edges, the fact that it's not bias won't matter. So the bias part is you cut it on the diagonal so that it easily stretches and goes around corner curves and things, which is what you would want, say, if you were hemming a complete or edging right around a top or around armholes, but I'm not going to be doing that. So the fact that it's not cut on the bias won't matter. And what it will do is I'll be able to edge the neck opening without having to fold it over, which I prefer. I think I'll prefer. So I've literally just cut maybe a 2 centimetre piece of material and then ironed the edges over and then over again. So I have my piece of binding. Normally we'd call it bias binding, but it's not cut on the bias. So just going to pin binding on. So I'm doing it in 2 stages, make sure I get this centre right into the centre. So I'll pin it first and then I'll pin it over the second layer over. And then that's going to get folded under, so that dark area should be hidden, which will be fine. Okay, so now I'll do the second layer. And this is the reason why I've done the two in 2 parts, because going around that little corner, it's going to be a little tricky. That will look fine. Just centering my needle where I want like line stitching. When you're ready to change directions, you just put the needle through so you can twizzle on the spot, turn the material around, and then you can continue sewing.
center.
So what I'm doing is just making sure this is all sitting correctly, and then I'm going to sew that center neat. And you can see there where it stands out proud. So if I sew that in a gradual line, that will sit better. Second time I've pinned myself. Just this morning, that pin head there. Third time, good grief. I'm having luck with pins today. I'm just doing the side seams. sewing the little side vent. It's just going to sew around it. So up to where the seam splits, and then sew across. And then down. So you just have to make sure that when you turn it for the second corner to sew down the second side, that you've actually far enough over to have the full seam width before you start going down again. I'm going to use the original ties from the dress on the front casing. So I've just whipped that closed, and I'll just thread a bobby pin through, and then that will slide through the casing. Just going to use this side seam to sew that closed. I'll just sew over the thread and close the side seam, and then I'm going to attach the strap from this direction rather than coming out of the casing, which is what the pattern has. Once I've got it on and I'm happy with the distance, I'll actually take it off and just sew that there, and then this will be tied. The next part of it calls for the strap to go front to back and then through the back casing and then back to front. It did actually go through here and then to here, but I wanted to use a different cord on the front than what I'm going to use on the shoulders and the back. I'm just sewing the strap. So luckily this skirt had a fabric belt, so I'm just using that fabric belt as the shoulder straps. Just guiding this, trying to get an even sized strap. So I'm using my thumb down here to stop it and my fingers here to stop it from swinging, so that it goes in around about the same place. Some of this extra seam off, as I don't want to have it too thick down the straps and make it really bulky. I just have to turn this right side out. So I'll just go and get a chopstick. Just using the chopstick, push the end through, pull away. Right, just go and iron this and then we'll put it through the top. I'm going to use a safety pin again to go through the closed end of this. Trying to get it to sit so at least that the seam is facing inside, so that when I come out either end I don't have it all twisted, and it'll untwist when I am trying to sort out them going into shoulder straps. It's about halfway either side. It's back onto my pin cushion. I've got a couple of safety pins, some hand sewing needles, and all of my current pins. Okay. Just going to put a couple of stitches through that centre middle part on one of the white areas. It's not as visible, just to hold this in the middle so it doesn't pull more side than one way than the other. That's it. Right. So that will gather. That is the back. And then this will come across. And I'm going to just pin it there, pin and sew it there, and that will be how it goes. So I just need to do it for size. That's vaguely what the top looks like. So I've got to make sure these fit. So that's looking okay. I'll end up sewing those areas as well when I'm happy with how that looks. And same with the back. Since I'm happy with how the gathers are, I will sew either end. That looks okay. I've got everything even. It's going to get. I'll just sew this down the seam. Just going to hand sew this, at least to start with. I want to try and have it a little bit more invisible than it would be if I sewed it on the machine. Doing anything fancy on that part. Yeah, it's not fancy sewing anyway, but